Good. Okay. Looks like we've got a few people logging in, so we might give it one more minute if that's okay. All right, well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so why don't we go ahead and get started. On behalf of UCREW DC, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Elizabeth Pye. I am a former board member of the UCREW DC chapter and I'm currently sitting on the CREW Network Committee and co-chairing the UCREW efforts with Holly Lanahan, excuse me. And we have put together what I'm sure will be a great conversation panel for this evening. Real quick, a little overview of the agenda. We are going to have some guest speakers. Focusing first, Mandy Whedon will be giving an overview of the scholarship, the selection process. We have some former recipients of the CREW Scholarship that will share a little bit about their experience. And then we will round out the evening with Nancy Hogan Smith and Tyler Morrow from Lincoln Property Company with some great recommendations on resumes, do's and don'ts. After that, we'll have an opportunity for some Q&A. So feel free to get your thoughts together and come at us with some good questions. We are happy to answer any that you may have. The program is being recorded. I would ask that if you are not speaking to please put yourself on mute so that we don't have any interruptions or feedback. And this recording will be available at a later date and time for viewing pleasure, either for yourself or for any of your friends and family that may be interested in listening in. So real quickly, some background on our guest speakers. We're going to start off with Mandy Whedon. As a founder and CEO of Feroce Real Estate Advisors, Mandy advises forward-thinking real estate companies on positioning their real estate and teams to succeed during times of disruption. Feroce works with clients to chart the path forward through shifting landscape of commercial real estate, technology, and consumer demographics as translators across the varied languages of commercial real estate investments, ESGR, PropTech, capital markets, sustainability, DEI, and the future of work. With 20 years of experience running multi-billion-dollar real estate portfolios, Mandy delivered results to investors by leading change and creating value out of change. As a leader at a publicly traded REIT and private real estate investment funds, Mandy built and led high-performing and diverse investment management teams while delivering sustainable, consistent results to investors and customers. Nancy Hogan Smith. Nancy joined Lincoln Property Company in 1995 and is currently the Senior Vice President of Human Resources for Lincoln's Northeast Commercial Region. She is responsible for the management and overall direction of human resource services, policies, and programs for the region's over 900 employees in 13 states. Originally from Connecticut, Nancy received a bachelor's degree from the University of North Carolina at Wilmington and is certified as a senior professional in human resources. And Tyler Morrow recently joined Lincoln Property as Director of Talent Acquisition for Lincoln's Mid-Atlantic region. He oversees all recruiting efforts for the firm's varied commercial real estate departments, including, but not limited to, financial analysis, asset and property management, leasing and brokerage, development, marketing, research, construction, and project management, as well as administrative and technological practice groups. He received a Bachelor of Science degree in Communication from George Mason University and also holds a Human Resources Management certificate from Cornell. And we have our two former recipients of the CREW Scholarship, Caroline Blair and Chloe Heiligenstein. And hopefully I did that correct. I had a prep session with Chloe before. And when they share their stories, I'm going to let them kind of introduce themselves because I don't want to steal any of their thunder as they impart their wisdom and experience with the scholarship. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Again, we'll have a Q&A at the end. We also welcome you to put in the chat who you are, where you're hailing from, what university, if you're working or interning somewhere, pursuing education. We look forward to hearing from you. So with that, I will kick it over to Mandy.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's great to be here with everybody this evening. Thank you. I'm happy to share with you about the CREW Network Foundation's work, specifically the scholarships. And I'm really grateful that we'll be able to hear directly from the scholars, Chloe and Caroline. And of course, I'm looking forward to learning from Tyler and Nancy as well, because it's always good to learn from the experts. So let me give you a little bit of an overview of the network and the foundation, and then we'll dig into the scholarship specifics. So the CREW Network Foundation is the only organization dedicating its resources solely towards transforming the commercial real estate industry by advancing women globally. It was established in 1998, and it has three pillars. One is industry research. It's the leading publisher of research on women in commercial real estate, working to close the compensation and advancement gap for women. Another pillar is career outreach. CREW Network is committed to bringing more women into the field by creating educational programs that educate women and girls about the career opportunities available to them in the industry, and also providing mentoring to those who are new to the industry. And the third pillar is the college scholarships. So the Foundation Scholarship Program supports future female leaders as they pursue university level education that will ultimately lead to a career in commercial real estate. So with the help of generous donors and the endowment founders, the Network Foundation will give away 30 scholarships to young women in 2022. To date, the Foundation Scholarship Program has awarded $1,147,500 to almost 200 students in the US and Canada. And in 2021, the foundation selected 25 graduate and undergraduates to receive a total of $125,000 in scholarships. And this year, we're going to increase that from 25 to 30 scholarships awarded. I am really grateful for the opportunity to have been involved with the Foundation Scholarship since its formation. I helped lead CREW DC's work to raise and contribute funds as one of the founding visionary chapters. And I've had the honor of serving on the scholarship selection committee twice, most recently in 2020. It is an incredibly inspiring work to participate in the selection committee because you get to learn about and hear directly from the future leaders of the commercial real estate industry. And it's a very competitive scholarship. So the talent and the work that they will do to move our industry forward is meaningful. The selection committee is comprised of leaders from CREW chapters across the US and Canada. And the committee reviews the completed and qualified applications based on selection criteria that's published on the website. And it includes the scholar's academic record, their commitment to a career in commercial real estate, extracurricular activities, a history of employment and volunteer work, personal and professional references, as well as notable achievements and accomplishments. So this year in 2022, the 30 scholars will receive benefits that include $5,000 for tuition and books, complimentary CREW network membership, student membership for 2 years, a paid internship over the summer of 2023, complimentary registration to the CREW network convention, which is in Chicago this year, along with a travel stipend to cover some of the expenses, and a 6-month mentoring opportunity with a senior leader in the industry. So those are the details and the specifics on the scholarship, the application and the benefits. The deadline is April 15th, 2022. There's still plenty of time to complete your application. So I'll leave you with 3 takeaways before we hear from the scholars. So my first is for applicants, share your story. Use storytelling techniques to communicate through your essay and through the written part about you and about why you are looking forward to participating in the commercial real estate industry. The second takeaway is to line up your letters of recommendation. It's powerful for you to tell your story. It's also powerful when someone else tells your story on your behalf. And the third is to just do it. Did I mention the deadline is April 15th, 2022? You've got more than 2 weeks, but so many applicants start the application and don't finish it. So I would love to see more people finish the application. So I will turn it over. I think Caroline, if you want to join us on camera, we would love, we would love to hear about a little bit about you and about your story as a scholar.
Sure, and apologies in advance if it's a bit loud. I'm about to go on a job tour for one of my classes. So I'm sitting next to a construction site and I think I found a quiet spot, but just want to give you all a heads up. So I am a current CREW Foundation scholar. I'm pursuing a master's in real estate development at the University of California in Berkeley. It's a 1-year program targeting individuals who have already been working in the commercial real estate space and are either looking to make a career change or expand their knowledge or gain some other skills to help further their career. So I was, prior to the program, I was working for a general contractor in San Francisco. I guess I'll start in college. I went to the University of Virginia and was a civil engineer, grew up in Alexandria, so right outside of Washington, D.C., and interned for Clark Construction during my 3rd year of school. Loved working in commercial real estate, was learning a lot, working for a general contractor, so decided to move out to California to do a similar career path after I graduated from UVA. After a couple years at the general contractor, I started working for CBRE in their project management department, and was there for about 4 years and decided to go back and get my master's degree to make the pivot into real estate development. So I learned about the CREW scholarship when I was accepted into Berkeley. Our program is very proactive about sending out scholarships that we'd be eligible for. So was very excited when I saw this one come through my email. I had been familiar with the CREW San Francisco network and had only heard great things, but hadn't become really involved in the network yet. So I decided to apply for the scholarship, both because it's a great opportunity to learn from the experience and have the resources of the CREW network available for you while you're in school, but also because it was kind of the push that I needed to become more involved with CREW, which is something that I wanted to do during my career before. So I found the application process very interesting. I just come off of applying to grad school, so was kind of in application mode and already had my references from my grad school application all lined up. So I didn't find it too strenuous. I definitely agree that starting is the hardest part. And once I got started, it was pretty easy and inspiring to work through the questions in the application. I was so excited to hear that I had won the scholarship. I was really hoping that I put in a strong application. So when I got that phone call, it was great news and definitely made me even more excited to start my program. So far, I feel like I've gotten a lot out of it, just feeling more ingrained into the crew network, both nationally and locally. Being able to reach out to people in the crew network and be a little bit more confident on your networking, just because you're in the scholarship program, it has been extremely beneficial. And the mentorship program, I believe, is new this year. So I feel very grateful that I was able to participate in that program in its first year. I think my best memory of the programs so far will hopefully be the mentorship program. I unfortunately wasn't able to go to the crew conference in Vegas this year because it was in the middle of my exams, but I'm hopeful that I'm going to be able to go to Chicago as part of the mentorship program. And then just having the resources of crew available, especially as I wrap up my program at the end of this year and transition into the job search mode in the next couple months. I already feel grateful that I'm in the network and have all of these wonderful and inspiring women kind of rooting for me along the way. So I unfortunately need to drop off a little bit before the Q&A session, but feel free to reach out if you have any questions for me specifically. And I wish you guys the best of luck.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for sharing, Caroline. I always said that I knew it was going to be a good day when I had to grab my construction boots and a hard hat. Like, that just makes me happy.
I'm very excited. This is going to be a cool tour. So
awesome. Awesome. Okay, thank you. Well, Chloe, we would love to hear from you about your experience as a Crew Scholar, as well as your story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I would just like to say Dr. Elaine Morzala is really the reason I got involved with Crew in college. I went to the College of Charleston down in South Carolina. I knew I wanted to do commercial real estate. Dr. Morzala really took me in and kind of showed me the ropes, as well as any students who were willing to show up. So I was showing up, going to the luncheons with her my sophomore year. I'd heard about the scholarship. I applied my junior year and I didn't get it. And I was like, next year, like, I'm just going to keep like kind of getting more experience, tweaking my essay, just networking within a local chapter, just kind of building myself and just my essay. So then I applied again and I ended up getting the scholarship. So I still remember getting that call and being like, oh my gosh, like it's a very, like you said, Mandy, it's a very competitive scholarship. It's hard to get. So I was really excited when I got that call, and it really just like was like, okay, yeah, hard work pays off, especially since I didn't get it the first go around. So that was really great for our Crew Charleston chapter as well, because I got a lot of recognition and I got to meet everyone in the chapter, which even today, like, I introduced myself to people and they're like, we know who you are because you got the scholarship. So it was really cool to kind of give that like accelerated push into involvement in our just local chapter. So I mean, career-wise, I interned at 2 different companies, and then my third internship was at Colliers International my junior year. And so I started with Colliers junior year and then just continued on until graduation, and then started as a broker right away. So it was really cool. I mean, they always say, like, when I applied with like the Crew Scholarship, it was so, it's just cool to see that and see that you're being recognized in a national sense. So that was a really rewarding experience. And they still to this day are like, Chloe has her scholarships, like all that. So from the scholarship, obviously it's really amazing to feel supported in an industry that is very male dominated and an industry that I don't have any ties to. I just really was jumping in blind. So having all of these women who are really believing in you and willing to give you a scholarship to help, for example, like have less student loans, or I mean, it is a risky business for getting into brokerage. So that type deal was really great to have all these people. And then within my 25 scholars, I made sure to individually like have phone calls with everyone, introduce myself, talk about kind of what they were like, how they heard about the scholarship. And again, like I feel like I have 25 new friends from doing so. And I mean, I wish I kept up with them better, but I still know I could email or call any of them and ask them about any advice. And then that goes on to involvement today in CREW, is that it's really rewarding to have that kind of safe space as a young woman to go and ask questions to and get advice. And as well as even like mentor younger women who are, even if they're 2 or 3 years younger than me, it's really nice to be like, hey, like this is what CREW has given me. This is how CREW has benefited me. And even building my confidence, CREW has been crucial. And just like going out and meeting with bankers or architects for coffee, just because I'm a lot more comfortable meeting with a woman when I'm a young woman as well. So it was really great in that aspect. And then today I served on the communications committee. Now I'm on the sponsorship committee. So getting involved in my local chapter has also been extremely rewarding. And just meeting, as our chapter has continued to grow, I just meet so many great, inspiring women. So without the CREW Network or CREW Charleston or the CREW Foundation, I wouldn't have like so many people that I know who are just willing to help and support. So the scholarship has been great. I highly urge everyone to apply for it and work hard. If you don't get it the first time, apply again, because that's exactly what happened with me. But you can't let that kick you down. But yeah, I guess that's my story, and I'm super grateful to have. I mean, even being at this event right now, I'm not a part of CREW DC, and it's great to just have an open. There's just so many amazing women in the network. So that's my story.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. We're glad to have you. Excellent. Well, now I want to take some time and hear from Nancy and Tyler. And there will be time we have at the end for Q&A for the scholars as well. And feel free to drop it in the chat if you don't want to forget it while you're listening, or if you want us to address it along the way. But Nancy, for you.
Thank you, Mandy. Chloe, I would just start by echoing your same sentiment about CREW and feeling a part of such a great network of women, not just as a young woman, but even as a middle-aged older woman, gets a lot of confidence from the same group as well, several years into it. So thank you all for inviting us to participate. I'm thrilled to participate and share what we can with regard to, the hiring practices that we see every day. I think, as Elizabeth described, I head up the human resources for Lincoln Property Company, and our region is about 900 employees today. And we see, anywhere from 200 to 300 new hires and applicants each year. So in my tenure here, several years, I've seen a lot of resumes, and certainly seen some, positives and negatives, and they do change, from year to year and trend to trend. So, and we offer a wide range of career opportunities within commercial real estate. So everything from, real estate brokers and sales persons to property management, construction, financial analysis, even building engineers, accounting, market research. So it's a wide range of skills that we are looking for from all venues and areas of life. So we have a lot to offer, and a wide range of skills that we see. So I want to introduce you to Tyler, who oversees all of our hiring here in the Mid-Atlantic region. And so he sees all of these resumes all day long, every day, and from different sources. And so he has some really great information that he can share on do's and don'ts.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you guys for letting me come and be a guest speaker. And as Nancy mentioned, I work closely with her. And while I don't have a ton of experience yet in commercial real estate and still kind of learning the ins and outs of the business, I have been in talent acquisition for a few years. And I've seen numerous resumes. So I put together kind of a presentation. Some of it's more general, but maybe covering some of the core concepts of what I've been seeing and what are some do's and what are some don'ts of that process.
So I think Kathy, if you want to start with, there we go.
Awesome. You can actually jump to the next slide. Perfect. So kind of just overview of a resume. These are probably some concepts that you've seen before. They may be some new concepts, but on most resumes, you'll have your personal information. You'll have an objective statement or a summary statement. Education, work experience, accomplishments and awards, skills. And then the last part here is something that's relatively new. I don't want to say within the last year, probably in the last few years, is this idea of linking it to a digital portfolio, whether that's LinkedIn or if you're on the creative side, if you have a portfolio of graphic work you've done. On the technical side, there's a lot of different places where you can store projects and things that you've completed. Just a couple of things to highlight here. Personal information, there's a ton of different ways to look at it. I think the most important would obviously be you want to have your full legal name, professional email, definitely want to have a contact number, and the preference is probably a number where you can be reached, at any time, in case someone needs to leave a voicemail, just something that you're checking pretty consistently. I think the objective statement is kind of a hit or miss. I think if you're transitioning to a new industry, I think it's really important. This is really where you can sell your current skills and show that you have some of the expectations of a new role or a new industry. But again, I think for someone that's kind of entry level, it's definitely something where you may not need it. You don't want to just kind of take up blank space. So outside of that, education, I think most recent degree certifications are important. Anything you're currently pursuing or enrolled in. So if there's an anticipated graduation date, definitely think that that's something that you'll want to kind of list. Work experience. This is something we'll cover a little further in the process of this slideshow today. And then of course, accomplishments and awards. This can be anything from, real-time data to just simple awards that you've received. And we'll also discuss that. Skill section is probably one of the most important, and I'll get into that a little bit later as well, but we can go to the next slide. So the first section we'll talk about is formatting. So some do's that we have listed, keeping bullet points the same length. I think sometimes you'll see different lengths of bullets depending on the job. I always think the rule of thumb, depending on your experience and how much you've done within, whether it's an internship or your current full-time role, to keep it to about 4 bullet points, 4 core bullet points, and then go beyond that if needed, but just keeping a level of consistency. I think secondly, obviously, you definitely want to keep fonts and sizes relatively simple. You don't want the recruiter or the interviewer to kind of get lost in the style of your resume as opposed to the content that's there for us to look at in more detail. Even jobs like marketing where there's that creative aspect. I know a lot of times people want to change fonts and kind of look to make the resume stand out. I think that's where you leverage your portfolio and you leave the resume kind of just a standard black and white copy of your experience. Dates, titles, location should be aligned. So, sometimes you have a date that not all dates kind of fit the same depending on the month you're putting in. So just make sure those are aligned because that does give a good sense of alignment and makes your resume look really clean. So I think that's important. And then of course the digital piece. So whether it's putting a link to your LinkedIn at the top where your name is or other portfolio information, I definitely think having some type of online portfolio is super important, especially today where most people spend their time online on LinkedIn, looking at resumes that way as well. And even a Word resume now is really coming digitally through email as opposed to a lot of times it being printed out. So I think it's important to look at it that way as well. The don'ts, obviously, thinking space is unlimited is not a good approach. You just want to put the core information. Some people have shorter resumes than others. You don't need to pack a full page, but again, just you want it to be relevant. You want it to be concise. You want it to be impactful. I wouldn't use pictures and colors. That goes back to a statement I made before about font sizes. I don't think that's needed. On rare occasions, maybe a photo of yourself. But again, I think that's something that you can avoid. The coveted references section on a resume, I think it should be separate. I think nowadays everyone knows that, references are part of the process and they'll reach out to get those. So you can keep that separate. And then of course, again, working with everything else I said about font size and picture and all of that, kind of minimize it to just 2 fonts and no more than that. Content. So probably the most important piece of the resume is what you're writing. So I always, mention the use of power verbs. So, when you're writing something such as, managed or administrated or monitored, organized, developed, executed, those are all super important. And it's really a way to be impactful with your statements. So, I'll give some examples of different ways power verbs can be helpful and different ways you can write. So example 1, someone might write responsible for weekly marketing campaigns. Maybe another way to write that would be spearheaded the content calendar for weekly marketing campaigns. And where the difference is, one, obviously spearheaded versus responsible, one word is more impactful. And then secondly, in the first statement, you're only hearing that the person has done marketing campaigns. Whereas the second statement, you're hearing that they've done marketing campaigns, they know how to manage a marketing calendar, and they even know how to do weekly follow-up. So basically getting 3 pieces of information in one statement. Second piece would be just kind of paying close attention to job titles. You don't want to fabricate things, but if I were to write summer intern on a resume versus someone writing digital marketing intern or property management intern, that's going to be more impactful because you're actually hearing exactly the department they're in addition to the fact that they were an intern, without having to go deeper into the resume. A lot of times recruiters or people looking at a resume are going to scan it very quickly. And it's important that the titles match and that they know exactly what department you're in and what you were doing in that particular role. Again, clear and concise statements. It's easy to start writing and then you realize like you have this long run-on sentence. So I think constantly looking at it and editing what you write and making it more concise as you go is really important. So for example, if someone was waiting tables and they wanted to explain that they communicated with guests, someone might write guided arriving guests to tables, took drink orders, and relayed information to bartenders. And maybe a more concise way of saying that might be maintain strong customer service with guests by communicating accurate drink and food orders. So just a way of being really concise and still getting your point across. I think that's really important. And then again, the last note here is past and present tense. Whether you ended an internship, the last month, or it's been a year or so since you completed a job, I think you just have to make sure that it's consistent and that you're using past tense versus present tense if you were currently in the role. And then real quickly on the don'ts, we talked about objective and summary statements. They're not necessarily needed, but this should not be a paragraph long. It shouldn't take up the whole resume. It should be 1 or 2 sentences, maybe 3, just kind of summarizing your experience, or maybe if it's pivoting to a new career, that's where you kind of use that statement to help kind of draw interest there. Don't forget the spell check. Of course, that's super important. Page length, you don't want to go over 1 page if you can help it, but I know some people have obviously a lot more experience. So if you need to go 2 pages, that's obviously fine as well. And then you definitely want to avoid using my and I in your resume. Skills section, this is probably my favorite. So I started my career in tech recruiting, and as you could probably guess, the skills section is one of the most important. And I think that carries over to pretty much every position. You definitely want to make your skills relevant to the job you're targeting. So sometimes a little research can go a long way. Finding out what those skills are if you don't have those skills. Things like saying proficiency. Computer proficiency is probably outdated, and I'm sure a lot of us have heard that before. Maybe saying something like proficient in Microsoft Suite, which encompasses Excel, Word, and Outlook, would be a better use of space and a better way to kind of describe your skills. Definitely more important than anything, you want to weave these skills into your resume. So if you mention Excel as a skill, it should definitely correlate to somewhere on your resume where you've used that, whether it's coursework or whether it's a current role, and whatever you did with it, whether it was pulling data from Excel, whether it was actually advanced Excel like VBAs and macros and pivot tables, you definitely want to make sure that's in some of the jobs if you've used that skill. If you do a quick search, obviously in the industry, you can find out that there's certain skills that are needed for certain roles. If you're a data analyst, maybe instead of putting Excel, you may actually want to put, Excel and in parentheses VBA and macros, since that's something that's more data driven, or R, which is another language, or Python, which is a language you might use to look at data. On the don't side, definitely don't want to be too general, with the skills. You want to be specific. So, if you've used something like Adobe Creative Suite, which is like Photoshop and Illustrator, and, encompasses a lot of different versions of a larger technology. If maybe you've only used Illustrator, just list that specifically, like Adobe Illustrator. That way, if someone asks you about Creative Suite and you haven't used the other, you don't put yourself in a predicament where you're not able to answer questions. Don't obviously add skills, and that's probably the second piece I just mentioned that you can't speak to. If it's on your resume, be prepared to talk about it. I think that's the rule of thumb I would consider. Don't list things just because you want to land on the top of a recruiter's desk, because it's only going to be painful as you go through the interview process and not being able to speak to that. And then soft skills is something I put as a don't, but depending on the role, if you're a attendant services coordinator or someone who's at the front desk with customer service skills, you may want to list, organized, timely, professional. And I think there's ways to do that, as I mentioned before, in a clear, concise manner. So our last section is accomplishments, and this goes along with skills. I think it's something that sometimes gets forgotten, and there's different ways that we can, put this into a resume. Obviously, some of the do's would be select accomplishments that provide context to your resume. So maybe, for example, they should be valuable. So maybe an accomplishment could be a piece of data. It doesn't have to necessarily be that, you won Manager of the Year or Associate of the Year. It could be something as simple as, the difference between, oversaw maintenance and operations for a 458 unit property. That 458 unit is an accomplishment. That's something that you would list, and that would fall under this category. Another example of how you could put that into your resume might be oversaw store brand engagement and operations for a top retailer, and then awarded Manager of the Quarter after 6 months in role. So that's another way to kind of put it in the resume without having to have a separate section for it. If you find that you have a lot of awards and you've received those throughout your career, whether it's scholarships or other opportunities, I think you could even add a line under your bullets that say, key events achieved, and then list kind of the things that you've achieved, whether it be a specific award or a scholarship or something to that degree. Again, just reiterating, accomplishments don't just have to be a physical piece of paper. They can also be something like, tracking how many, units you've covered or other pieces of data. Don'ts are pretty simple. Don't exaggerate your awards. This is like an additional section. You don't have to have it, and some people don't have it. Doesn't mean they're bad employees. Every company, acts a little differently. Some give out a lot of awards, some don't. Don't, again, use this just to fill space. And then everyone kind of asks, well, education and certifications, they are technically awards. You're awarded those, but there's a separate section on the resume for that. So I think that covers everything, but hopefully these do's and don'ts are helpful.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, excellent. Do we have anybody want to raise their hand or drop in the chat questions for Chloe or Nancy or Tyler on scholarships resumes? And you feel free to ask questions to about foundation or specifics about scholarships applications as well.
I have a question, and
Go ahead.
Please.
Okay. And I don't know if this is the right forum, so you can tell me we can talk about it offline, but is there a rubric that you all use for grading the applications, the interviews to kind of help narrow that down?
Are you asking about Nancy and Tyler and their hiring process, which I have that good question for them, or are you asking about the Crew Network Scholarship?
Crew Network Scholarship.
Yes, there is it's an online process now where the scholars upload their information to the system, and then the reviewers go in and have very clear criteria that they use during the evaluation process for the different applications. And then based upon that, numbers are assigned. The top recipients, top applicants are evaluated and selected.
And is that something that's just more proprietary on that side, or is there a way to know that breakdown of what the percentage weight is given to, the different areas?
Yeah, I don't know if if the weighting is shared with the applicants, or if it's equal across or not. It is so the first step is the screening, right? Are you eligible because of your GPA and because you need to be a full-time student, you need to be a junior or a senior. If you're undergraduate, you need to be graduate. So all of that work is done by the system. And then the next step is based on the essays, the submitted, and the references and such.
Great, thanks.
How many people read the applications, Mandy? Is it like 12 of you, 10 of you that are doing?
Yeah, so I think there's a dozen or so for the graduate and a dozen or so for the undergraduate applications.
Great question.
Nancy and Tyler, I would be interested in hearing about your process if you have, and I say process in quotes, right? Because now we encourage real estate companies to be thoughtful and intentional about running an actual process for their hiring. And some are getting there and some are good at it. And I imagine that your team hires a lot of people, so you have a process. You want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. You're right. We have learned that it's very important to track all of this information. So when you're managing 200 applicants a year, you really need a good system to do so. And we've found one. It's called an applicant tracking system, and it allows us to screen applicants from many different sources and track them from year to year and over time, and from location to location. So if we find a candidate in Virginia that we think would be great for a position in Maryland, we can easily communicate that information. So that's just a great tool that we have. But generally, applicants apply through our careers page on our website. We also, that then spreads out to other career sites like Monster and Indeed. And I know Tyler will tell you that one of his absolute necessary tools today is LinkedIn. A huge percentage of our candidates at the professional level come from LinkedIn. So that's a huge resource. And generally, the process begins with a screening interview, normally with Tyler, a recruiter, and then followed up with, we have a behavioral assessment tool. So it's a very soft skills measure that really is a tool for the candidate as well as the interviewer. For instance, it helps sort of understand, if somebody's really strong in communicating or is in more of a, back of the house kind of position. And they're always very subjective. So, we don't, we wouldn't reject or necessarily hire based on those skills, but it's really just a helpful tool from both sides for understanding the basics of going into the interview process. So, so then Tyler would normally coordinate with the hiring manager, and it could be anywhere from, one or two people to talk to a group of, depending on, the job that we're hiring for. And that's sort of that we follow the natural process of finding the right skills for the right job and qualifications, and sort of go from there. So hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if not.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks. Chloe, are there any surprises or were there any hidden nuggets that you learned either during the application process or as a scholar?
It's 2 years ago, so I have to think a little hard, but I think just, again, I think your resume is so important and just really putting your best foot forward. So the second time I applied, I really sat down. I really thought long and hard about my essay. I really thought about who my references were, just really giving it a lot of thought and not, I mean, it's so easy to just apply for a scholarship and write an essay and get your references, but really just like putting the best version of myself out there, as well as getting more involved in the local chapter. I think that also really helped because then I was able to work side by side our president, who was able to kind of mentor and help me through the process. But CREW it's been amazing.
Is your chapter active in recruiting other people to apply? Are you someone that they turn to?
Yeah, I mean, ever since I kind of got it, we've tried to get more people to apply, but I mean, it's really just allocating the time and dedicating the time to writing the essay, making sure your resume is polished, having that experience, getting those references. So I'm actually talking to a girl now that's applying and just kind of like giving her, just kind of helping her, I guess, and just reviewing some of her stuff. So I think once one person in the chapter gets it, it inspires others to want to get it. So.
Chloe, when you did you have the opportunity to go to convention, and can you tell a little bit about your experience there?
No, I did not get to go to convention. I was a recipient in 2020, so everything was virtual. So I went virtually and I got to talk to everyone virtually, which was great, but obviously not the same. So
Yeah, that's a bummer.
yeah, so that's why I met all of my other scholars on the phone, and I really made a point to connect with them just because I know that that is a really special time when you all get together. And yeah, it was really cool to talk to so many other young females who were like, whether they knew exactly what they wanted to do in real estate or whether they didn't, like just the motivation and the inspiration and the passion. It was just so cool to connect with so many like-minded females. That was definitely one of my favorite parts of receiving the scholarship.
And you said that you hadn't come from a real estate background. So what drew you to real estate?
Yeah, so again, Dr. Rosala, who was on the call, really, so I came into college and I was like, I'm going to do residential real estate. And I think a lot of people, I mean, if you don't know the commercial side of things, because if you don't grow up with it, you're not really exposed to it. So I took a class my freshman year that Dr. Rosala was the professor, and had a lot of like brokers come in, architects, construction, developers, property managers. So every different facet of real estate. And I just found myself connecting more with all the brokers that came in. So probably like the first year I was saying I wanted to be a broker, I really didn't know what it meant, but I knew that was kind of the route I wanted to go after being exposed to like the business side of it. And then just really worked my way through that and just networked and got involved with CREW, which helped me grow my network and have people to go to, whether that's like, I went to my first conference, I went to an SIOR conference my first week in brokerage. And so I called Elise Welch, who was our chapter president for quite some time, and really like a primary reason I was inspired to go into brokerage. And it was one of those things that I was just like, how should I navigate this conference? Like, I'm 22 years old and I'm staying at a hotel in a place I've never been. Like, what should I do? So she gave me some really good tidbits, like carry around a Sharpie with you, like little things like that, that I'm so thankful I was able to just pick up the phone and call her, because she was in my position not too long ago.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Do we have any other questions? Anybody else have questions for our panelists?
I have a question for you, Mandy. Because I have just, I'll just, a little tidbit. I was on the board of CREW and was a delegate. So I actually was very focused on CREW as a regional sort of group, and thought, well, I work for a regional architecture firm. I don't need the national network. And then once I got involved with the national network, it's just a very powerful thing. It sort of changes your perspective. And Foundation Scholarship was one of those things. So my question is, when you're looking for winners, is there any notion that we'd like, because when Chloe was listing all the different people that came to the classes she had, is there a notion that you want some brokers, you want some developers, you want some architects, you want some, construction people, some finance people? Is there sort of a balance in the portfolio of students who win?
I think I would say the first goal is in the application process, it lists the qualified fields within commercial real estate, which many of you who are in the industry already know, right? Spans from law to architecture to finance to brokerage to corporate real estate to civil engineering. It's a really broad spectrum that makes up all of the industry, all of the specifics and skills that are in the commercial real estate industry. So yes, I would say that the goal is always to be as diverse as possible in the broad definition of diversity, as well as to be a beacon, shall I use the word, to say real estate is not just this one thing. It is not just office brokerage in downtown DC, right? It isn't just developing multifamily in the Southwest. Because to build those buildings or to lease those buildings, you need all of these other skill sets. And so there's a lot of room for a lot of people to participate in the commercial real estate industry.
Holly, I'd like to add to that, because I was on the scholarship selection committee a long time ago. And one of the things that we realized is that applicants who are already in a technical field of study, like civil engineering or architecture, it's pretty clear that they may want to go into commercial real estate. It is for the students who where you could join commercial real estate with any kind of degree, a degree in anything at all. And so looking for, as Mandy said, that diversity of representation across all the ways a person could be in commercial real estate is part of the objective. And that's part of soliciting lots of applications, so that we do in fact have that very widely diverse pool of applications from which to choose. Not that I wish any more work on the selection committee, because it's already voluminous enough, but trying to get lots of people from lots of different places is what we want to do.
Well, and to that point, Nancy and Tyler, what are some of the roles that you've been hiring for? And I'd love to hear, Nancy, how that's changed in the last, over your tenure at Lincoln, because when I just think about the roles and property operations, they've changed significantly, or they are changing.
That's a great question. Tyler, I know we have several vacancies today. Do you have is there one that you're filling, positions you're filling more frequently now?
I think it's been a mix. I think it's been, on the property side, we've seen, obviously looking at a lot of assistant property managers and, pulling people from residential, pulling people from commercial and training people. And then obviously on the financial side, as we gain more properties, where there's a need for, project accountants at the junior level all the way up through the senior level. And then, there's some obviously more specific roles that we look at. We just brought in somebody that's doing a lot of data on the financial side for a lot of our properties. But I would say the core roles we've been seeing a lot is definitely a lot of assistant property managers, definitely a lot of project accountants. And we have a great program here that's run by one of our directors focused on tenant engagement. So I know that there's been a big push for that, finding people that have events experience and really can provide that full portfolio of services to some of our commercial properties.
That's a great example. I was trying to think of some of the trends, it kind of all blends together when you've been doing this for as long as I have. So I've been trying to think of some of the trends, but that's a perfect example. We've definitely changed our focus since I've been here from, we were all property management for a very long time. And then we changed to a lot more development in recent years. So our focuses have changed and we've grown in every area as a result, but that's the tenant engagement program, our service to our customers in property management has changed as far as what their wants are, what our tenants are looking for in a building has changed. So what was used to be sort of a classic concierge, if you will, who would, sort of memorize all the CEO's birthdays and holidays for their families and stuff, know where all the restaurants are, has changed to other more technological services that we can offer to folks at their office building. So as those trends have changed, the skill sets we're looking for have changed as well. So that's a great example, Tyler.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up with one question for the three of you, Nancy, Tyler, and Chloe. Just one takeaway that you want to leave with current listeners or future listeners. And I'll start. I will go back and reiterate as an applicant for the scholarship to tell your story, your why, as it relates to commercial real estate. That will differentiate you and help you become one of the scholars. So
I have mine. I guess I'll kind of go off of that, and something that I think really helped me not only with the scholarship, but as well as just in the position I am today, is be persistent and never give up. Because like I said, I didn't get it the first time, but that didn't discourage me. And I think it's just one of those things that just never give up and be persistent in all aspects.
I would say along those similar lines, Chloe, I think if you at first don't end up in the right arena that you thought you would, don't be afraid to try out other departments. So we've had a lot of entry-level folks start out in even administrative positions and gone from administrative position to, hey, I want to try out accounting. You know what? Accounting didn't work out for me. I want to look into property management. And we've had some really long career folks here who have, tried out several different areas before they found their really perfect match. So I think being open to other opportunities has been, is a good perspective to have.
I think the thing for me would be we're in a very competitive space right now with, opportunities for employment, whether it's scholarships as well. So I just think, from a skill standpoint, just keep in mind that even though it's a competitive marketplace, there's a lot of opportunities to gain those skills. There's different things, whether it's LinkedIn Learning, which is a service you pay monthly for, whether it's a simple free Excel course. So there's different ways you can gain skills. Everyone's opportunity is different. So, just keep that in mind. It's a great way if you're working on your resume and you're like, hey, I'm missing a lot of skills. How do I gain those skills? And sometimes it's internships, but other times you can do a quick video tutorial. And there's a lot of great programs out there that are free to use and can help you get the experience you're looking for.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to Chloe and Caroline and Tyler and Nancy. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Elizabeth.
Yes, well, this was fantastic. I really appreciate all the insight and wisdom that you guys shared. I hope for those of you that are on the call or listening to this in the future date and time, that it's inspired you to participate in our scholarship opportunity. I know Kathy dropped the link in the chat. You can find that information out online, and feel free to reach out to Holly, myself, Kathy, anyone on this call. We're happy to assist you in any way that we can during that application process and in your career as a whole. If you're interested in having someone take a look at your resume, reach out to us. Both Holly and I, we can get you in touch with somebody within CREW that would be willing to take a look at your resume and provide some feedback on that front. So we appreciate you guys taking the time to join us tonight. We wish you the best of luck, and keep an eye out for future programming with UCREW. We'd love to have more college students participating in our programs and getting involved in commercial real estate. So spread the message with your friends, and crew is a great place to be. So come join our crew. With that, I will say thank you to you all and hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.